Another day, another series of war crimes allegations in Gaza. And to nobody's surprise, we've got conflicting reports coming in from the two sides. So we'll talk about what we know and let you decide. Now, I'm recording this at 9 a.m. Central on Monday, March 18th, 2024. Overnight, Israel says that acting on intelligence information suggesting the presence of senior Hamas officials at the Shifa hospital, the IDF carried out a targeted military operation focused on arresting Faik Mabu. They say leading up to the raid, the IDF called on residents living near Shifa Hospital to evacuate to a humanitarian zone on the coast of southern Gaza. The IDF's Arabic language spokesperson published a map that I'll show here that was dropped in leaflets over Gaza as well as published on social media, showing the zones that needed to be evacuated alongside the announcement. Then as Israeli forces approached the Shifa hospital, they say they came under fire from Hamas militants in and around the hospital complex. They released some overhead drone footage saying that a roadside bomb was detonated alongside this Israeli military column while they were engaged by small arms fire from Hamas elements firing from inside of the hospital complex. Israel says that they returned fire at the gunmen shooting from inside of the hospital, killing and wounding several of them. They said the one Israeli soldier was lightly wounded, and I have heard reports since this originally came out that one Israeli soldier may have also been killed. Then Israel says the target of this operation, Faik Mabu, who served as the head of operations in Hamas's internal security, was armed and currently hiding inside of the Shifa hospital complex. They say Mabu was killed during an exchange of gunfire while Israeli forces tried to arrest him. They say that in a nearby room to where Mabu was killed, IDF uncovered a cache of weapons that had recently been moved into the Shifa hospital complex. Mabu, according to the IDF, was responsible for the synchronization of various Hamas units in the Gaza Strip, including during the war that kicked off just a few months ago. Then we have a statement from one of the Israeli soldiers on scene this morning. This is a sync from the deputy squadron commander of the IDF's Shayetet 13 unit. He said, "We conducted a targeted raid and encirclement during the night at the Shifa hospital in order to locate and eliminate the enemy and dismantle terrorist infrastructure within the hospital complex. We are carrying out a comprehensive encirclement of the hospital led by the 401st Brigade. At this stage, we have identified numerous armed terrorists and suspects attempting to flee from the hospital. We understand that Hamas is using the civilian population and the hospital infrastructure as a shelter, and as an escape route, and as a command and control infrastructure for its organization." Now, looking at some statements from other entities involved in this conflict, the Hamas Qassam brigades, the militant arm of Hamas, confirmed earlier today that there was fighting ongoing in and around the Shifa hospital complex, saying, "Since dawn on Monday, the Al-Qassam brigades have been engaged in fierce clashes with enemy forces invading near Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City, targeting a number of Zionist vehicles, causing deaths and injuries among their ranks." Now, they're not saying that they were inside of the Shifa hospital, but that near the Shifa hospital, Hamas was engaged with Israeli forces. Then a Hamas statement here goes into a little more detail. They say a new crime committed by the criminal Zionist occupation army this dawn in its aggression against the Al-Shifa medical complex in Gaza City and the surrounding area by targeting the hospital buildings directly without indifference to the patients, medical crews, and displaced peoples. They say the failure of the international community and the United Nations to take measures against the occupation army was a green light to continue the war of genocide and ethnic cleansing that it committed against our people, which is one of the pillars of the destruction of medical facilities in the sector. They say we call again on the international community of the Red Cross, the World Health Organization, and other international institutions concerned with the need to stand up their responsibilities to protect the remaining medical facilities in the sector and to document the crimes of Nazi Zionists against the medical sector, protected by the Geneva Convention and international humanitarian law. So we've gone over the official accounts so far, right? We've got what the IDF says happened, one of the groups that planned and is carrying out this operation around Shifa. We've got the Qassam Brigade saying that they are engaged in active combat around the Shifa hospital complex, and then a statement from Hamas, the governing entity in Gaza. This news is starting to get more coverage. We've got something from Al Jazeera here, again, calling on sources from inside of Shifa and inside of Gaza. They quoted the Gaza Health Ministry saying that, quote, "Anyone who tries to move is targeted by sniper bullets and a quadcopter," adding that the raid has resulted in a number of martyrs and wounded. Then they also quote the Gaza government media office, the Hamas government media office, who condemned the operation, calling this attack a war crime, saying the Israeli occupation is still using its fabricated narratives to deceive the world and justify the storming of Al-Shifa. Now, all of this conversation about is it a war crime, is it illegal, can they do this, can they not, a key component here is looking at what allows a hospital to enjoy the protected status in a war zone. So looking at the Red Cross here, they outline some of this. They say, according to the international humanitarian law, health establishments and units, including hospitals, should not be attacked. This protection extends to the wounded and sick, as well as to medical staff and means of transport. The rule has few exceptions, which of course we're going to get it into here, because this, for Israel to carry out an operation in and around a hospital complex, means that they're saying one of these exceptions applies. Again, according to the Red Cross, they say specific protection to which hospitals are entitled shall not cease unless they are used by a party to the conflict to commit, outside their humanitarian functions, a, quote, act harmful to the enemy. So if a hospital is used to conduct an act harmful to the opposing forces, it loses its protected status. They say medical establishments and units enjoy protection because of their function of providing care for the wounded and sick. When they are used to interfere directly or indirectly in military operations and thereby cause harm to the enemy, the rationale for their specific protection is removed. This would be the case, for example, if a hospital is used as a base from which to launch an attack, as an observation post to transmit information of military value, as a weapons depot, as a center for liaison with fighting troops, or as a shelter for able-bodied combatants. So I'm kind of parsing through the conflicting claims here. Israel says that they were fired on from inside of the hospital, which of course would be an act harmful to the enemy. Once they got inside, they say they uncovered an arms cache, which of course would be in some way, shape, or form a weapons depot inside of the hospital complex. And then in the process of trying to capture the senior Hamas leader, Faik Mabu, they killed him. So you have what the Red Cross refers to as a shelter for able-bodied combatants. If you have a senior Hamas leader taking shelter in a hospital complex, it would be, of course, in violation of that. Then from the Hamas side, worth noting, they don't say anything about their militants firing on Israeli forces from inside of the hospital. They don't say anything about weapons found inside of the hospital or one of their senior leaders killed inside of the hospital complex. Instead, they focus in on what they say is the indiscriminate targeting of civilians, medical personnel, and the patients inside of Shifa Hospital. So essentially, that's what we know right now. Official contradictory statements coming from the two sides, some pictures and some videos. Just like everything coming out of Gaza for the last 5 or so months, the fog of war is pretty thick with this one. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in this or other national security subjects, be sure to check out our Substack, linked in the description below. Substack's essentially like a mix between a website and a newsletter. You can sign up and get these 3 to 4 articles we're writing direct to your inbox when they come out. This last week, we talked about things like AI in warfare, water wars between India and China, and what's going on down in Haiti. All that's free, linked in the description below. Hope you find it useful. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.